What's going on, influential brands for entrepreneurs? Happy Friday. This is Andrew Tran, and I just wanted to talk to you guys about two things today. And one was from a question from a student in the Instagram masterclass, and one, like, I've actually, not just that person, but I've actually gotten this from a handful of people. And like, knowing, like, when it comes to making posts, like, how should I start, right? And I have an announcement also at the end of all this. So if you guys stay tuned to the end, just want to share something new, but I just want to talk about it first. So when it comes to making posts, like, how should I start, right? So whether, I know we talk about Instagram a lot, whether this is Instagram, whether this is Facebook, whether it's LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, whatever channels that are out there, right? Your email, right? When it comes to making your posts, like, I think when you're just trying to create content, a lot of times we just create content first, and then we try to figure everything else out, right? And if you do it that way, it, I think, is a lot of work in the long run, right? And basically, like, where should I start with posting those contents? And with all of this, like for my step, like, this is probably like the fourth or fifth thing that you should be doing when you're putting out content, right? So in the beginning, we just try to, like, put stuff out there. We don't know where to go, and I think that just like posting content better than doing nothing is still better. Okay, don't get me wrong out there. Like, you doing nothing, like, at least continually trying. Like, at the end of the day, like, there's a system, there's a formula, there's all these things that you can learn to do things. But when you're like not acting at all, that's worse than doing like things without a plan, right? So if you don't have a plan, that's totally okay. I'm gonna help you guys out here if that's okay with you guys. And so where should we start, right? And I've talked about this over the last couple of weeks, well, over the last few weeks with it, is we should start with you, right? The brand is you. So at the end of the day, like, having a content, when you're educating people, we need to sprinkle ourselves into the content as well, right? So like, if all you're putting out is just super educational stuff, right, and you're just making posts and infographics and all this stuff, like, even if it's just a picture of you, right, just even a picture of yourself, and then holding up, like, a pelvis, and being able to just having your picture with that, like something simple as that, being on video, like being able to educate people. I think a lot of times when I see like content, like, that's starting with you. If it's the very minimal, you don't know how to share stuff about yourself, but when you start with your brand and you, like, that's where it all starts, right? And that's where people will be attracted to you, because at the end of the day, you can give out, give, but if you guys are in here, this is Influential Brands for Entrepreneurs, and as entrepreneurs, our job is to solve problems, and give people solutions for them, right? And to make money off of that. And I think serving is great, but at the end of the day, you still need to make money for a living, right? You got to pay the bills somehow, right? And as an entrepreneur, you have to make money first. Like, the end goal, which I've learned from other people, is like, we have to make money to pay ourselves, to take care of ourselves. Just like in healthcare, we have to take care of ourselves before we take care of other people, right? So I'm not saying do this all for money, but like, also, like, don't forget, like, like, you gotta work, like, pay for your own bills, pay for your family, work, and take care of your family and yourself with that. So with that, when you connect yourself with it, it just makes things a lot easier. People connect with you a lot more, and so that's where I would start, right? Okay, cool. You can't just share stuff about yourself, right? You can't just be like, all right, cool, y'all, like, I'm in here, I'm just getting drunk for the night, and I just like to party all the time, and like, just give no value out, right? So it's like, how is this sharing stuff about you and your brand and being able to hone that in? How is that going to be able to help your audience with it, right? So let's say you're working with runners, right? And you used to be a runner, you may not be a runner anymore, right? So you want to work with runners, and like, I used to run in high school and college, but went to PT school, I've been graduated, I've been out a few years, but I just still love running with a passion. I don't run anymore, but like, you don't have to be running now, right? Especially as physical therapists, you have an ACL injury, like, you don't have to have an ACL injury to help people with them, right? You don't have to have a stroke to work with people who have strokes, right? So I think that's just a thing that sometimes people are like, well, I haven't actually done that, so I can't actually help that population out, which is totally wrong, right? So just helping out with the passion. So the next thing is, after yourself, you need to know who your audience is, right? Because if you're talking about running and all this stuff, and you're trying to work with people who are either CrossFitters, right? Well, I guess CrossFitters run as well, but like not as much. We don't really run. But with runners, and then you're going to be talking about gymnastics, right? And like if gymnasts don't run, right? If that's not how they like, train or how to get in shape. I don't know anything about gymnastics, so if I'm totally wrong, my bad. But or let's say you're working with a stroke patient, right? And they're not able to run and all, like you're talking about running all that stuff, but your population is that you need to ID who the hell you want to work with first, right? So like having an audience, and then okay, cool. Like this is everything about the niche. And we're talking about having like knowing everything about them from the demographics to the psychographics and everything. Like if they're a man, if they're a woman, if they have kids, if they make a certain income, have a certain job, if they live in a certain area, if they like whatever that may be, right? And then the psychographics, where do they live, where do they hang out, and doing all this stuff. Like when you're knowing that and researching all that about them, you know them so well that you're able to put out content that is related to them, right? Because like at the end of the day, subconsciously, when we can connect with something that like is about us and that helps us, like we're gonna want to buy it, right? So if you're the moral of it, or the end goal of it is the more times you get someone to say yes over and over and over and over in your messaging, right? So like, hey, do you live in, I live in Florida right now. Hey, do you live in Florida? Are you in the Tampa area, right? Do you like to run? Do you have issues like on like, because a lot of times with runners, they usually don't have pain right away. Maybe like on the 10th mile, like and then on the 10th mile, or like if you're targeting like half marathons to marathoners or whatever, maybe or the 5th mile, 6th mile. A lot of times runners like, oh, I'm good all the time, but like I have pain with this. So like running at X amount of mile, or like you feel like you're just super tight after all your runs and you can't do anything about it, and you're paying for X amount of days, right? And like just knowing that you're messaging like how they experience it, but like if you don't know that about them, because most runners like I've worked with, like again, I'm not an expert or anything in it, but like the ones I worked with are usually after a certain mile. It's usually like the first few miles or just them walking, going down the stairs. Most of the days, this is not as painful with it, right? But it all depends. But you just have to talk to your audience, right? I'm just giving you guys an example. But yeah, so that's just like knowing more and more about your audience. You need to do the research with them, right? You need to ask them questions. You need to get just to dive in and know everything about the brain, and not just their running brain, right? So like where else do they hang out? Right, running stores, right? If they do, they go sort of do they eat really healthy, right? Or do you work with? I know Kayla, who is also in this group, works with plant-based runners, right? So okay, cool. Do they go to the farmers market? Do they eat more organic stuff? Like if they don't eat meat, like you don't need to be talking about that. Like how, like what are their concerns, right? Are they more concerned about getting their protein, right? Because that's a big thing, right? Can you still get protein? Yes or no? If you're a vegan. Having a vegan diet, right? And you also work with runners. So a lot of this stuff, and this like having your story with us, she's like, well, I'm one, like for example, let's say with Kayla, if she's a plant-based runner, she's like, well, I'm one as well. And I don't ever get sore. I don't ever have those issues because with my diet, I'm able to do this, this, and this to be able to heal a lot better afterwards, right? And you're like, oh shit, like that's me. Like I want to know more about that, right? So those are just examples. But these are the things that like you just need to know about your audience, and having like questions and being able to talk to them, communicate with them. Like you can't assume what they want, right? You know what they need. Like we all know what they need, right? So when you're solving people's problems, you know what they need. Like whether it's runners, whether like with JoJo, who like they need her services, but if you're just like, hey, you need like marriage counseling or something like that, people just hate that word, right? But if you're saying like, hey, do you have problems with this, and this, right? Or if you like, it's like you need help communicating, like we all hear that, but like just different ways of communicating that communication can just be important, right? So it's just like just know more about them. Where do they actually struggle, right? And what are their pain points? And just knowing all that about your audience, then you're able to now create your content, right? So I think a lot of times, like again, creating content with none of the backstory is still better than like not posting at all and not doing anything at all before you try and get this perfectly, right? So I'll still take action, still posting things out. Sometimes you post things out, you get crickets, right? No one resonates with it, and that's totally fine, right? But that's totally okay. Like, or maybe it's bad timing to post it, or if it's you didn't have good attention grabbing. The content might have been good, but you didn't have something to grab their attention, whether it's a title, whether it's a picture or video, whatever that may be. I post things all the time, like just go through my stuff, right? Like just go through my Facebook, my personal side, go through even this group, go through my Instagram. Like everything doesn't have super high engagement. Like it's always trial and error with everything that you're doing with content that you're putting out, and you just have to learn what resonates with. Okay, why do they resonate with this? Why do they not resonate with it? Give it more of that, right? Literally, this was an exact question that I got from someone that in this group. I literally just copied and pasted this. I was going to talk about it, and I was going to have a different title for this. So I was like, you know what? Someone had a question with this. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste this. I'm going to talk about it, and then be able to help you guys out. Right? That's literally how I'm creating content. I'm just having more conversations. But if you guys aren't having conversations, you guys are researching, you guys don't know your niche, you don't know any of this stuff, like you can't, it's hard to create content around it. Like you can create all these things that, yeah, you can use your peroneus muscles and you know, doing this and all this on, like they don't give a fuck about that. Like they don't. Be like, you haven't pain outside of your leg and you know, you're tired of like whatever. I don't run, so I don't know like the runner's audience that well, but let's say like you having like pain on the side of your leg after your runs or during your runs or whatever that may be, right? So those are the people who are like, this is why it's so important, and these fibers are on it, and versus these fibers and stuff. That's okay if you want to talk a little bit about that, but like the majority of it should not be about all that jargon, right? Like if I'm not good with finances, right? I'm not good with investing. I'm not good with all this stuff. But when I talk to Will Butler, right? If you guys know Will Butler, he's a financial physio. The reason I worked with, because at first, like, one, he's a PT, so he relates everything back to PT terms, right? He's like, this is kind of like a soap note. This is like football. I understand football. I understand what a soap note is. I understand what certain things are. Like, he literally said something the other day to me. He knows that, like, my vocabulary isn't that great. And he's like, yeah, this is something like this. I was like, dude, like, I don't know what that means. But literally within that same message, he, like, gave me an analogy. It's kind of like this. I was like, okay, cool. I was about to Google that because you just made me feel really dumb, right? But he's just a king of like analogies and stuff like that. And being able to like then bring it back and just like have that conversation, right? So just knowing like again, like, knowing your audience and everything with it, and being able to relate it back to why that actually matters. Like you're checking all these fibers and all this stuff. Like, hey, if you're talking about all these fibers and stuff, like well, if you're a sprinter, this is what matters. If you are a endurance runner, this is what matters. If you don't like to run 5Ks, if you're just a weekend warrior, if you're whatever, whoever you want to target, you just have to more about it. Running still itself is a big ass niche. Like there are runners like. There's so many different niches within running. There's so many like so that you can like people just like to run and don't like to compete at all. There are people that are high level competitors. There are people that run ultra marathons. There are people that like run half marathons. People that only run a shit ton of 5Ks every weekend, right? So it just all depends. And there's just also thing is like just knowing that there's enough out there, right? So but yeah, so that's before you create content. If you know where to start, like just start having more conversations. Easy enough, like this, like I said, like. With Carl jumping on, he just jumped on for working with the Business Brand Accelerator program. Like I'll go a lot more depth about all this stuff, but like even with this, like you know, like I'm trying to give you guys as much value as possible now. Like it's still gonna be helpful. Like just having more conversations, just talking to those people, and like diving in a lot more. But we're gonna go a lot more depth about all this stuff and just being able to put out contents, right? So like don't not put out content because you have to wait a couple months because you're doing all this research and then doing that out there, right? Just put it out there because you never know, stuff might click, right? And then what happens is when you put more stuff out there, you're talking about it a certain way, maybe the people don't understand it, they're gonna be like, well, what about this? You're like, okay, cool. Take that content, take that comments, the questions that you're getting and make more content off of it. Like literally like that's how you kind of go about it, right? So like that's where you should start. Does that make sense for those of you guys who don't? But yeah, hopefully that makes sense for you guys. Again, before you guys starting, like just kind of think about that, right? And then putting yourself into the content, sprinkling that in, right? And then also being able to educate people, like I'm doing right now. So like this is just an example, right? Like I'm very transparent about all of this. So, but yeah. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if you guys have any questions regarding whether it's the Business Brand Accelerator program, whether it's putting out content, where to start. Again, this is applicable to whether you guys use Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or LinkedIn or emails or anything like that. And it's like just knowing your audience and putting stuff out there, right? Like TikTok, right? Like knowing that TikTok has a certain age population there. And if your population is like 50, 60 plus, they're probably not on TikTok, right? They're on Instagram, they're on Facebook, right? So those are things with that, right? So just knowing wherever you put the audience out, like what is attractive to them, what are they like, how can you do this? So that's basically just my, you know, hopefully that makes sense with everything I just talked about today within that. So just like, again, like creating content should be like the fifth thing that you're doing. You gotta know the brand you, right? You have to know identifying your audience, researching them, surveying them, giving them forms and polls and all this stuff, right? And doing that in an effective way, and then creating the content around it. Because then when you create captivating content, they're like, oh shit, how does he know about that? Like literally you can like, oh, how do you know this? Because literally when you guys come into this group, what do you guys want to learn about? When you got to do intro to this group, what do you guys want to learn about? Like, I literally make content around that, right? I'm not hiding anything from you guys. I want to give out value. Why am I going to talk about this over here? There was one thing I wanted to talk about, but no one really said like they want to talk about that. So I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to talk about this instead, right? So that's just knowing your audience with it, right? So there's a lot of ways to do that. Thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate you guys so much. And as always, guys, make life humorous. If you guys have any questions, DM me, message me. Appreciate you guys.